How did agreeing to stay silent at my daughter's engagement dinner end her future exactly as planned? Everyone thought I was an embarrassing, outdated father who needed to be managed. They didn't realize silence was the only position that let me move everything underneath them. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. The restaurant was one of those places where the menu doesn't list prices and the waiters wear vests that cost more than my work boots. Elara had chosen it, naturally. She'd been making choices like this for the past 3 years, ever since she started working at that marketing firm downtown. Each decision moved her further from the apartment where I'd raised her and closer to people who measured worth in square footage and alma maters. I arrived early, which was my habit. The private hall was already set with white linens and arrangements of flowers I couldn't name. 20 seats around a single long table. I recognized the setup immediately. This wasn't dinner, this was a presentation. Elara found me near the entrance, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She wore a dress that probably cost what I made in a week, maybe 2. Her hair was pulled back tight, the way her mother used to wear it for important meetings. The resemblance caught me off guard, like it always did. "Dad." She smiled, but her eyes were doing calculations. "Can we talk for a second?" "Sure." She glanced back toward the hall, then guided me to a small alcove near the coat check. Her hand on my elbow was gentle but firm, the way you'd move someone who might not understand the situation without help. "I'm really glad you're here," she started. "Julian's parents are excited to meet you." "Good. They're very formal people, his mother especially." I nodded. "What I mean is..." She paused, choosing words carefully. "Tonight's going to be a lot of talking. Business stuff, family stuff, wedding planning. It might get overwhelming." "I'll manage." "I know you will." Her smile tightened. "But I was thinking, maybe it would be easier if you just listened tonight. You know, let Julian and his parents handle most of the conversation. They're used to this kind of thing." There it was, delivered with care, wrapped in concern, but clear as glass. "You want me quiet." "Not quiet, just present, supportive. You don't need to explain your work or talk about the old neighborhood. These people wouldn't understand that world. Because I'm embarrassing. Because you're different." She touched my arm. "And there's nothing wrong with that. But tonight's important. For me. For us." I looked at my daughter, this woman I'd raised alone since she was 11. I'd taught her how to change a tire, how to negotiate, how to spot a bad situation before it trapped you. Somewhere along the way, I'd become the bad situation. "Okay," I said. She blinked. "Really?" "You asked. I'm agreeing." Relief flooded her face. "Thank you. Seriously, Dad, this means everything." Julian appeared then, moving through the space like he owned it. Probably 29, maybe 30. Tall, groomed, wearing a suit that fit too well to be off the rack. His smile was the kind that came from expensive dental work and a lifetime of getting what he wanted. "Rowan," he extended his hand. "Good to finally meet you properly." His grip was firm but brief, like he was checking a box. I shook once and let go. "Elara was just telling me how much tonight means to her," I said. "It's a big step." Julian put his arm around her waist. "Merging families, sharing traditions. My parents are old school about this stuff. Lots of toasts and speeches." He laughed. "Don't worry, we'll keep you out of the hot seat." "Appreciate that." "My mother can be intense. She'll probably ask about your background, your work, that kind of thing. Just keep it light. We don't need everyone's life story tonight." Elara nodded along like he was saying something wise. "Understood," I said. Julian grinned and clapped my shoulder. "Perfect. Let's get you a drink." The hall filled quickly. Julian's parents arrived with an entourage. His younger sister, an uncle, a couple of family friends who apparently had to be included. Marianne Voss, Julian's mother, entered like weather, changing the atmosphere just by being present. She wore black and pearls, her silver hair cut sharp at her shoulders. When Julian introduced us, she took my hand between both of hers. "Rowan, I've heard so much about you." "Nice to meet you." Elara speaks very highly of her upbringing. Single father? That must have been challenging. "We managed." "I'm sure you did." Her smile was professional. "Julian tells me you work with your hands. Something industrial? Welding? How practical." She released my hand and turned to Elara. "Darling, you look radiant. That dress is perfection." We took our seats. I was positioned midway down the table, between Julian's uncle and one of the family friends. Elara sat near the head with Julian and his parents. Strategic placement. I was close enough to be included, but far enough to be ignored. The first course arrived, something small and arranged like art. Conversations bloomed around me. Julian's father, Theo, mostly listened, occasionally nodding or adding brief comments. Marianne drove the discussion, asking questions that sounded curious but weren't. She wanted information, measurements, confirmation that everyone at this table met a certain standard. Julian talked about his firm, about expansion plans, about a new logistics contract they were finalizing. His voice carried well. He had the tone of someone used to being heard. Infrastructure is where the real growth is, he said, gesturing with his fork. Not the glamorous stuff, but it's reliable. And if you control the movement of materials, you control the entire chain. Marianne nodded approvingly. That's the Morel approach. Foundation first. Exactly. Like with the fabrication contracts we're bidding on, everyone focuses on the design, but the actual construction, that's blue-collar work. Important, obviously, but not where you need the talent. I kept eating. Blue-collar work is underrated, one of the family friends offered. Someone has to do it. Absolutely, Julian agreed. And those guys are solid. Show up, follow instructions, go home, honest work. Elara smiled, agreeing. She was watching Julian like he was delivering a keynote. What kind of workers are we talking about? The uncle asked. Welders, mostly. Structural stuff. It's actually fascinating once you get into the certifications and regulations. Most people think welding is just melting metal, but there's a whole technical side. Codes, inspections, liability chains. He said it casually, but I caught the error immediately. He'd conflated two completely different standards. One was for cosmetic work, the other for load-bearing structures. Mixing them up could collapse a project, literally. No one else noticed. Do you manage those workers directly? Marianne asked. Not day to day. We contract with firms who handle the labor, keeps things clean, but I review the bids, make sure we're not overpaying for replaceable hands. Replaceable hands. I set down my fork quietly. Elara was laughing at something Marianne had said. She didn't even glance in my direction. Julian continued. The key is leverage. You need people who understand the work, but don't think they're irreplaceable. The moment someone believes they're essential, they start making demands. Smart, Theo said. It was the first time he'd spoken in minutes. Dessert arrived, more toasts followed. Julian stood and thanked everyone for coming. He talked about family, about building something lasting, about how grateful he was to have Elara by his side. She beamed. Marianne wiped her eyes delicately. The room applauded. I didn't speak once. When dinner ended, people lingered near the entrance, exchanging phone numbers and promising to connect soon. Elara found me near the coat check again. Thank you, she whispered. You were perfect. Just listened. Exactly. Julian's mother loved you. She say that? She said you were gracious. That's huge for her. Julian appeared, already scrolling through his phone. Great night. Really great. Rowan, we'll do this again soon. Maybe something more casual. Sure. They left together, her hand in his, both of them laughing about something I couldn't hear. I stood there a moment longer, replaying the evening. Replaceable hands. Technical ignorance wrapped in confidence. My daughter's laughter when he said it. I walked to my truck, started the engine, and sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes before driving home. The silence hadn't been submission, it had been measurement. The apartment was dark when I got home. I didn't turn on the lights right away. Just sat at the small kitchen table and looked at the space I'd lived in for 23 years. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, galley kitchen, linoleum floors that curled at the edges. The radiator clanked in winter and the windows stuck in summer. It had never been much, but it had been enough. I'd raised Elara here, fed her, taught her, kept her safe. Now it was just walls and furniture. She hadn't visited in 8 months. I stood and flipped on the overhead light. The bulb flickered twice before holding. On the counter, next to the coffee maker, was a framed photo from her high school graduation. Elara in her cap and gown, holding her diploma, grinning like the world was opening up just for her. I was beside her, thinner then, grease still under my fingernails because I'd come straight from the shop. She'd been so proud that day. Not of the diploma, but of what it represented. Freedom, distance, a future that didn't look like mine. I couldn't blame her for that. I filled a glass with water and sat back down. The photo stayed on the counter, facing me. Her mother, Grace, had been the practical one. She'd worked as a bookkeeper for a construction firm, managing budgets and schedules, keeping everything running under the surface. She taught Elara math at the kitchen table, showed her how to organize, how to plan ahead. Maris believed in structure, in systems that worked whether people noticed them or not. She'd collapsed at work when Elara was 11. Aneurysm. gone before the ambulance arrived. I'd taken a week off, then gone back to the shop because rent didn't pause for grief. Elara had cried for a month straight, then stopped crying entirely. She started keeping her room immaculate, organizing her school supplies by color, checking her homework 3 times before handing it in. She was building armor, same as me. We survived. I taught her what I knew: precision, patience, how to read people, how to measure risk, how to finish what you start even when it's hard. I thought those lessons would stick. They did, just not the way I'd imagined. Somewhere around her junior year of college, her vocabulary changed. She stopped saying dad and started saying my father. She stopped talking about the neighborhood and started talking about networking events. Her visits became shorter, her phone calls less frequent. I noticed but didn't push. She was building a life. That was the goal. I'd done my job. Then Julian appeared. She'd brought him by once, maybe a year ago. Just a quick visit, enough to check a box. Julian had looked around the apartment like he was touring a museum exhibit, his smile polite but distant. He'd asked about my work, nodded when I answered, then changed the subject to something else. Elara had watched him the whole time, monitoring his reactions, adjusting her own in response. When they left, she hugged me and promised to visit again soon. She hadn't. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from an unknown number. "Rowan, this is Gareth Pell. Been a while. Heard you're still in the area. Got a project coming up that might need your eye. Give me a call when you can." Gareth Pell. I hadn't heard that name in 2 years. He ran a metal fabrication company on the east side, the kind of operation that bid on commercial projects too big for small shops, but too specialized for the national firms. I'd done contract work for him back when Elara was in high school, mostly certifications and inspections. Good pay, clean work, no drama. I stared at the message for a minute, then set the phone down. The evening replayed in my head. Elara pulling me aside, her careful phrasing. Julian's easy dismissal of people like me, Marianne's polite condescension, the laughter when I was described as part of the background. Replaceable hands. I looked at the photo again. Elara at 18, full of hope and ambition. I'd wanted that for her. I still did. But I wasn't replaceable. I picked up my phone and opened my contacts. Scrolled past names I hadn't called in months. Near the bottom was a listing for Irene Walsh, a notary I'd worked with on contract documentation years ago. She'd been meticulous, the kind of person who caught errors no one else saw. I typed a message. "Irene, it's Rowan Calix. Need to confirm some old project records. Available this week?" Her reply came within a minute. "Rowan, good to hear from you. Yes, I'm available. What are you looking for?" "Certifications, authorizations, vendor dependencies. Anything tied to commercial fabrication contracts." "Specific firms?" I paused, then typed. "Anything involving logistics or material transport." "Understood. I'll pull what I have. When can you meet?" "Tomorrow afternoon." "I'll send an address." I set the phone down and stood. The apartment felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in. I walked to the second bedroom, the one that used to be Elara's. She'd taken most of her things when she moved out, but a few items remained. A bookshelf with old textbooks, a desk lamp, a box of childhood drawings I'd kept because I couldn't throw them away. I opened the closet and pulled down a plastic bin from the top shelf. Inside were file folders, organized by year, contracts, certifications, inspection reports. My career, documented and sorted. Marishad taught me to keep records. She used to say that paper was louder than voices when it mattered. I carried the bin to the kitchen and started going through it. Project by project, signature by signature. Every job I'd worked, every certification I'd earned, every document with my name on it. By midnight, I had a list. By morning, I had a plan. The welding shop was on the industrial edge of town, tucked between a scrapyard and a warehouse that stored restaurant equipment. The building itself was a steel shell, corrugated walls and a flat roof that leaked when it rained hard. Inside, it smelled like ozone and burnt metal, the air thick with dust and heat. I'd worked here for 18 years. The morning shift was already running when I arrived. 3 bays, each with a welder stationed at a bench or framework, sparks cascading like fireworks in slow motion. The sound was constant. The hiss of torches, the clang of metal on metal, the low hum of ventilation fans struggling to keep up. I clocked in and headed to my station near the back. My bench was cleaner than the others, tools arranged in the same order they'd been in for a decade. Tape measure, clamps, grinder, welding rods sorted by diameter. Everything in reach, nothing wasted. Precision wasn't optional in this work. One weak joint could compromise an entire structure. One miscalculation could bring down a building. I pulled on my gloves and checked the work order. a steel frame for a commercial staircase. Nothing complicated, just time-consuming. The kind of job that required focus but not creativity. I liked it that way. 2 hours in, I heard voices near the loading bay. I shut off my torch and lifted my helmet. Through the open bay door, I could see 2 men standing beside a delivery truck. One was the driver, clipboard in hand. The other was Julian. He wore slacks and a button-down, no tie, sleeves rolled to his elbows like he was about to pitch in. He wasn't. He was talking, gesturing toward the truck, laughing at something the driver had said. I stayed where I was, out of sight. "This is the easy part," Julian was saying. "Get the material delivered, get the crew working, keep the timeline tight. The hard part's already done. Contracts, bids, negotiations, that's where the skill is." The driver nodded, not really listening. "Most of these guys," Julian continued, nodding toward the shop, "they don't understand the bigger picture. They show up, do their piece, go home, no vision. But that's fine. You don't need vision when someone else is steering." "Sure," the driver said. "Welders, for example. Solid workers, totally necessary. But at the end of the day, replaceable. The certification matters more than the person. As long as someone's name is on the paperwork, the rest is just labor." I set my helmet down carefully. "You work with a lot of welders?" the driver asked, clearly trying to wrap up the conversation. "Enough to know how it works. My firm's bidding on some major infrastructure projects right now. Bridges, frameworks, industrial builds. Big money. The trick is keeping costs low without sacrificing quality. That means finding the right contractors who don't overvalue themselves." "Makes sense." "It's all about leverage," Julian said. "You get someone dependent on your contracts, they stay flexible, they stop asking for raises or better terms because they can't afford to lose the work." The driver signed the clipboard and handed it back. "Good luck with it." Julian pocketed his phone and walked toward the shop entrance. He didn't come inside, just glanced through the open bay, scanning the space like he was checking inventory. His eyes passed over me without recognition. Then he left. I stood there for a full minute, listening to the ventilation fans. Replaceable. I thought about the dinner, about Elara's request, about the way Julian had spoken over me, through me, without ever considering I might matter. I pulled off my gloves and walked to the small office at the front of the shop. The manager, Danny, was at his desk, sorting through invoices. "Need something?" he asked without looking up. "Got a question about contracts." That got his attention. "What kind of question?" "Who do we contract with for commercial projects?" "Depends on the project." "Why?" "Curious." Danny leaned back in his chair. "We work with a few firms. Gareth Pell's company handles most of the big bids. Some logistics companies subcontract through him. Why the sudden interest?" "Just making sure I understand the chain." "You've been here long enough to know how it works, Rowan. Material comes in, we fabricate or weld it. It goes out. Simple." "Right. But whose name is on the certifications?" Danny frowned. "For structural work? Yours, mostly. You're the only one here with a full commercial ticket. The rest of the crew's got basic certs, but anything load-bearing or regulatory needs your signature." "Thought so. Why?" "No reason." I left before he could ask more. Back at my station, I relit my torch and went back to work. The frame took shape slowly, joint by joint. I measured twice, welded once. No mistakes. At lunch, I sat in my truck and called Gareth Pell. "Rowan," he answered. "Got my message?" "I did." "Good. Look, I'll cut to the chase. I'm putting together a bid for a logistics firm. Julian Morell's company, actually. You know him?" "We've met." "Great. Well, his firm's expanding, trying to lock down some long-term infrastructure contracts. They need certified welders for the work, and your name came up. I wanted to check if you're still available for commercial projects." "Might be. Depends on the terms." "Terms are solid. Standard rate, your signature on the inspections, usual liability coverage, straightforward stuff." "When's the bid due?" 2 weeks, but I need to confirm personnel before I submit." "Let me think about it." "Sure, but don't think too long. Morell's firm is aggressive. If I can't confirm the crew, they'll go somewhere else." "Understood." I hung up and stared at the dashboard. Julian's firm needed my signature. Not just any welder. Me, specifically. Because I wasn't replaceable. I opened my phone and texted Irene Walsh. "Found something. Need to verify dependencies. Can you cross-reference vendor contracts against personnel certifications?" Her reply was immediate. "Yes. Bring the documentation. I'll run the comparisons. Tomorrow afternoon? I'll be ready." I put the phone away and finished my sandwich. The frame would be done by end of shift. After that, I had other work to do. Irene Walsh's office was in a low brick building near the courthouse, sandwiched between a bail bondsman and a tax preparer. The sign on the door read, Walsh Notary Services, in faded gold lettering. Inside, the space was small but meticulously organized. Filing cabinets lined one wall, a desk occupied the center, and a single window let in enough light to make the room feel less like a cell. Irene was at her desk when I arrived, reading glasses perched on her nose, a stack of folders open in front of her. She was in her early 60s, gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, wearing a cardigan despite the warmth. She'd always reminded me of a librarian, someone who valued order above all else. Rowan. She stood and shook my hand. It's been too long. Appreciate you meeting with me? Of course. Sit. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. I pulled everything you asked for. Commercial fabrication contracts, personnel certifications, vendor dependencies. It's more than I expected, honestly. She slid a folder across the desk. I opened it and scanned the first few pages. Contract summaries, signature requirements, liability clauses. Everything was cross-referenced, highlighted in different colors to show connections. This is thorough, I said. That's the job. She leaned back in her chair. I assume you're looking for something specific? I need to know who's legally required to authorize work on projects involving structural welding. In what context? Commercial builds. Anything that falls under municipal or state inspection codes. She nodded slowly. In that case, the certifications are non-transferable. Whoever holds the license is the only one who can sign off. If they refuse or become unavailable, the project stalls until a replacement is certified and approved, which can take weeks or months. And if the work's already contracted, then the contractor's in breach if they can't deliver. Depending on the terms, that could mean penalties, contract termination, or loss of future bids. What about firms that rely on subcontractors for labor? They're exposed, she said simply. If the subcontractor pulls their personnel, the firm has no leverage unless they have backup certifications already in place. Most don't. It's expensive to keep redundant staff. I flipped through more pages. One document caught my eye, a vendor dependency chart showing which companies relied on which personnel for specific project types. My name appeared in 6 places. How recent is this? I asked. Updated last quarter. Why? Just confirming. Irene studied me over her glasses. You're being vague, Rowan. That's not like you. I'm being careful. About what? I closed the folder. About making sure I understand the situation before I act. Is someone pressuring you? Not yet. But you think they will? I think they believe they don't need to. She took off her glasses and set them on the desk. Whoever it is, they're wrong. If your name's on those contracts, you have more power than they realize. That's what I'm confirming. Confirmed, she said, but power's only useful if you're willing to use it. Are you? I stood. I'll let you know. She handed me a business card. If you need documentation notarized or verified, call me. I'll make sure everything's airtight. Thanks, Irene. Be careful, Rowan. People don't like losing leverage. I left her office and walked to my truck. The folder sat on the passenger seat, thick with information I'd suspected but hadn't confirmed until now. Julian's firm was bidding on projects they couldn't complete without me. I drove to the warehouse district on the east side, where Gareth Pell's fabrication company operated out of a converted factory. The building was massive, 3 stories of steel and glass, with loading docks on all sides. Inside, the noise was deafening. Cranes moved overhead, forklifts zipped between pallets, and workers in hard hats shouted over the machinery. I found Gareth in a glass-walled office overlooking the main floor. He was on the phone, but waved me in when he saw me. I sat and waited while he finished the call. Rowan. He hung up and came around the desk. Glad you could make it. You said you had a project. I do. Julian Morell's firm is expanding fast. They're bidding on municipal infrastructure, private commercial builds, even some state contracts. Big stuff. They need reliable subcontractors, and I need reliable personnel. What's the timeline? Bid's due in 10 days. If we get it, work starts in 3 weeks. Full schedule, 6 months minimum. And you need my signature. For anything structural, yes. You're the only one in the region with the full commercial cert who's not already locked into long-term contracts. What if I'm not available? Gareth paused. Then I don't submit the bid. Simple as that. You'd walk away? I'd have to. Without certified personnel, I can't guarantee compliance. And without compliance, the contracts aren't worth the paper they're printed on. What about Julian's firm? They'd find another subcontractor, but that takes time, and they're on a tight schedule. They want this locked down now. I nodded. Let me think about it. Rowan, I need an answer by Friday. You'll have one. I left before he could push further. On the drive home, I stopped at a phone repair kiosk in a strip mall near the highway. The kid behind the counter looked 16, all acne and oversized hoodie. He barely looked up when I walked in. "Help you?" he asked. "Got an old phone. Need to see if anything's still on it." I handed him a flip phone I'd pulled from a drawer at home. It had been Elara's back in high school before smartphones took over. I'd kept it because I kept everything. The kid plugged it into a laptop and clicked around for a minute. "Battery's toast, but the data's intact. What are you looking for?" "Voicemails, text messages." "Give me a sec." He clicked through screens, his face lit by the monitor. After a few minutes, he nodded. "Got a few voicemails? Want me to transfer them?" "To what?" "Your phone. I can send them as audio files." "Do it." He tapped a few more keys, then handed the flip phone back. "Check your messages." I did. 3 audio files. I didn't play them yet. "Thanks." "No problem." I drove home and sat at the kitchen table. The apartment was quiet. I opened my phone and played the first file. Static, then a voice. Julian. "Hey, it's me. Just talked to the vendor about those fabrication bids. Honestly, this stuff is easier than I thought. The workers don't ask questions as long as the check's clear. Had a welder at the site today, older guy, didn't say a word." "Perfect. That's what you want. People who know their place." The message ended. I played the second file. Another recording, different context. Julian talking to someone about cost management. "Blue-collar guys are fine as long as you keep them modular. That's the key. Don't let anyone become irreplaceable. The moment they think they matter, they start making demands. Keep the pool wide, the expectations low." I deleted the files and set the phone down. Then I opened my laptop and started making a list. By midnight, I had everything I needed. The law office was downtown, a mid-sized firm that handled contract disputes and commercial litigation. I'd found them through a referral from Irene Walsh. She'd said they were thorough, discreet, and expensive. I didn't care about the last part. The waiting room was designed to intimidate. High ceilings, leather chairs, abstract art on the walls. A receptionist sat behind a granite desk, typing on a keyboard that made no sound. She looked up when I entered. "Can I help you?" "I have an appointment. Rowan Calix." She checked her screen. "Mr. Brennan will be with you shortly. Please have a seat." I sat and waited. 15 minutes later, a man in his 40s appeared from a hallway, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck. He extended his hand. "Mr. Calix, I'm Lux Brennan." I stood and shook. His grip was firm, professional. "Follow me." His office was smaller than I expected, but still polished. Dark wood desk, bookshelves lined with legal volumes, a window overlooking the street. He gestured to a chair and sat across from me. "Irene speaks highly of you," he said. "She mentioned you're dealing with a contract issue?" "Possibly." "Tell me more." I laid out the situation. Julian's firm, the fabrication bids, the reliance on my certifications. Brennan listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, he set down his pen. "Do you have documentation?" I handed him the folder Irene had prepared. He flipped through it slowly, his expression neutral. "This is solid," he said finally. "If your certifications are required for these contracts and you withdraw authorization, the projects can't proceed legally. The firm would be in breach." "What happens then?" "Depends on the contract terms. Penalties, delays, loss of future bidding opportunities. If it's a municipal or state project, they could be blacklisted." "How long would that take?" "To resolve? Months at minimum. To cause damage? Immediately. The moment they can't fulfill the contract, their reputation takes a hit. And if they try to replace me, they can try, but certification transfers aren't instant. They'd need to find someone with equivalent credentials, get them approved by the contracting authority, and refile documentation. That's weeks, maybe months, and that's assuming they can find someone available. What if they come after me? For what? You're not obligated to work for them. As long as you're not violating an existing agreement, you're within your rights to decline future contracts. They won't see it that way. They don't have to. The law is clear. I nodded. What do I need to do? First, confirm there are no current agreements binding you to these projects. Second, document everything, conversations, messages, anything that establishes their assumptions or your concerns. Third, when you're ready to act, do it formally. Written notice, clear language, no ambiguity. And then? Then you walk away clean? I stood. How much do I owe you? For today? Nothing. Call it a consultation. If you need representation down the line, we'll talk fees. Appreciate it. He walked me to the door. Mr. Calix, one more thing. If you're doing this for leverage, be prepared for fallout. People don't like being reminded they're not in control. I'm aware. Good. Then good luck. I left the office and drove to the bank. The branch was quiet, just a few customers at the teller windows. I approached the counter and asked to speak with a manager. 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from a woman in her 30s, professional but friendly. "How can I help you today?" she asked. "I need to review the authorization structure on my accounts. Specifically, who has access and what permissions exist. Are you looking to add someone or remove someone? Neither. Just confirming what's in place." She pulled up my information on her computer. "It looks like you're the sole account holder. No joint access, no secondary authorizations." "Good. Is there anything you'd like to change?" "Not right now." "All right. Is there anything else I can assist with?" "No, thanks." I left the bank and drove to the metal supplier warehouse on the west side. It was a sprawling facility, rows of steel beams and aluminum sheets stacked under an open roof. I'd bought materials here for years, always paid on time, never caused problems. The manager, a guy named Lou, was near the loading dock. He saw me and waved. "Rowan. Long time. Been busy." "I hear that. What brings you in?" "Wanted to ask about contract fulfillment. If a firm orders materials but can't complete the work, what happens?" Lou frowned. "Depends on the terms. Usually the order's fulfilled, but the materials sit until the firm figures out their problem. We get paid either way." "What if they never figure it out?" "Then the materials get reallocated or the firm eats the cost." "Why?" "Just curious." He studied me. "You working on something big?" "Maybe." "Well, if you need materials, let me know. I'll take care of you." Appreciate it, Lou." I left and drove home. The apartment felt different now, like it was holding its breath. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. The wedding rehearsal was scheduled for the following Friday, 1 week away. I pulled up my email and drafted a message to Gareth Pell. "Gareth, regarding the bid you mentioned, I need to decline. Appreciate the offer, but I'm not available for the project timeline. Best of luck with the submission." I read it twice, then hit send. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Gareth. "Rowan, what the hell? I need your answer, but I didn't expect this." "Sorry, Gareth. Timing doesn't work." "Can we negotiate? Adjust the schedule?" "No. This is a big opportunity for both of us." "I understand, but my answer's final." He sighed. "All right. Your call. I'll let Morell's firm know." "Thanks." I hung up and stared at the phone. The machinery was in motion now, no stopping it. The week passed slowly. I went to work, came home, kept to myself. No calls from Elara, no messages. She was busy, probably planning details, picking out flowers or seeding charts. I wasn't part of that process. I hadn't been for a while. Wednesday afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mr. Calix, this is Julian Morell. I'd like to meet with you before the rehearsal. Can you make time Friday morning? Coffee's on me." I stared at the message. He'd never contacted me directly before. Now, suddenly he wanted to talk. I typed back. "I'll be at the rehearsal. We can talk then." His reply came immediately. "I'd prefer to speak privately beforehand. It's important." "The rehearsal works for me." He didn't respond. Thursday evening, Elara called. Her voice was tight. "Dad, Julian said you're being difficult." "About what?" "About meeting with him. He's trying to coordinate something for the wedding, and you're blowing him off." I told him we'd talk at the rehearsal. "He wanted to meet earlier. Why can't you just do that?" "Because the rehearsal's fine." She exhaled sharply. "This isn't about you, Dad. It's about us. About me. Can you please just cooperate?" "I am cooperating." "No, you're being stubborn. Like always." "Elara." "What?" "I'll see you Friday." She hung up. I set the phone on the table and looked at the photo on the counter. Elara at 18, smiling. That version of her was gone now. Maybe she'd been gone for years. Friday morning arrived cold and clear. I dressed in slacks and a button-down, skipped breakfast, and drove to the rehearsal venue. It was a converted estate on the edge of town, all white columns and manicured lawns. The kind of place that charged by the hour just to stand on the grass. The parking lot was half full when I arrived. Catering vans, a florist's truck, a sound technician unloading equipment. Inside, the main hall was chaos. People moving chairs, adjusting lights, testing microphones. Elara was near the front, clipboard in hand, directing traffic like a general. She saw me and walked over, her expression tight. "You're here?" I said I would be. "Julian wants to talk to you." "Where is he?" "Outside, near the terrace." I nodded and walked through the hall. The terrace overlooked a garden, stone paths winding between flower beds. Julian was standing near the railing, phone to his ear. When he saw me, he ended the call and turned. Rowan, thanks for coming. What did you want to talk about? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I heard you declined Gareth Pell's bid. That's right. Can I ask why? Timing didn't work. Timing, he repeated. That's interesting, because the timeline was flexible. Gareth said he could adjust if needed. I'm not available. Not available or not interested? Does it matter? Julian's smile faded. It matters to me. That project was important. Without your certification, the bid fell apart. My firm lost a significant opportunity. That's not my problem. Actually, it is. You're part of the contracting chain. When you pull out, it affects everyone downstream. I didn't pull out. I was never in. Gareth said you were considering it. Considering isn't committing. Julian stepped closer. Look, I don't know what this is about, but if you're trying to make a point, you've made it. Now let's move past this. I'll have Gareth reach out again, we'll renegotiate terms, and we can all move forward. I'm not renegotiating. Why not? Because I don't want to. His jaw tightened. You realize this makes you look petty, right? Elara's going to hear about this. She's going to know you torpedoed a deal that affects her future. Her future? Yes. My firm's success is her success. We're building something together. When you undermine me, you undermine her? I'm not undermining anyone. I'm declining a job. It's more than that, and you know it. I looked at him. This man who dismissed me, mocked my work, called me replaceable. He still didn't understand. Julian, I don't owe you my labor. I don't owe you my signature, and I don't owe you an explanation. You owe Elara respect. I've given her everything. Then act like it. I turned and walked back inside. He didn't follow. The rehearsal started an hour later. Elara stood near the front, going over the schedule with the coordinator. Julian's parents arrived. Marianne in a cream-colored suit, Theo trailing behind. They greeted everyone warmly, hugged Elara, shook Julian's hand. When Marianne saw me, her smile thinned. Rowan, good to see you. You too. I hear there's been some confusion with a business matter. Julian mentioned something about a contract? No confusion. Just a decision. I see. She studied me, her expression unreadable. Well, I'm sure it will all work out. She moved past me, leaving the faint scent of expensive perfume. The coordinator called everyone to attention. The rehearsal proceeded step by step. Processional, vows, recessional. Everyone played their parts. I stood where I was told, walked when instructed, stayed quiet. Halfway through, Gareth Pell arrived. He wasn't supposed to be there. He stood near the back, arms crossed, watching. When the coordinator called a break, he approached me. Rowan, didn't expect to see you here. Family event. Right, he glanced around. Look, I need to talk to you, privately. We stepped outside, away from the others. Julian's firm is scrambling, Gareth said. They're trying to find a replacement for you, but no one's available on their timeline. They're talking about pulling the entire project. That's their choice. Rowan, this affects me too. I put resources into that bid. Time, money, planning. If it collapses, I take a hit. I'm sorry about that. Are you? Yes. He shook his head. I don't get it. You've never been difficult before. What changed? Nothing changed. I just made a different choice. Because of Julian? I didn't answer. Gareth exhaled. Look, I don't know what's going on between you two, but this is business. Don't let personal stuff cloud your judgment. It's not clouding anything. I see clearly. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. All right, your call. But if you change your mind, let me know soon. After today, the window closes. Understood. He left. I went back inside. The rehearsal continued. When it ended, the coordinator thanked everyone and dismissed the group. People lingered, chatting, laughing. Julian stood near the front with his parents, his expression dark. Elara was beside him, her hand on his arm, whispering something I couldn't hear. She looked up and saw me. Our eyes met. Then she looked away. I stayed near the back, waiting. The coordinator approached me. Mr. Calix, I need to confirm your role for tomorrow. You'll be walking Elara down the aisle, correct? That's right. Perfect. And you'll be available for photos afterward? If needed. Great. One more thing. The vendor contracts require final authorization for the venue and catering. Normally, the primary contact handles this. But since you're listed as a co-signer on some of the original agreements, I need your signature. I blinked. What agreements? She pulled out a folder. These, from when the venue was first booked. Elara added you as a secondary contact in case there were questions. I flipped through the documents. My name was there, buried in the fine print. What happens if I don't sign? Then the contracts aren't fully executed. The venue and catering can't proceed without all signatures. And if they can't proceed? Then the wedding can't happen. At least not here, not tomorrow. I stared at the papers. Elara appeared beside me. Dad, what's going on? The coordinator needs my signature. So sign. I looked at her. We need to talk first. About what? About Julian, about his firm, about the way you've treated me. Her face hardened. Not here. Then where? Nowhere. Just sign the papers, Dad. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'm not making anything hard. I'm asking for a conversation. And I'm asking you to sign. I set the folder down. No. The word hung in the air. Elara stared at me. What? I'm not signing. Not yet. You're joking. I'm not. Julian appeared, his expression cold. What's the problem? My father won't sign the venue contracts. Why not? I looked at him. Because I don't think this wedding should happen. The room went silent. Elara's face went pale. What did you just say? I don't think this wedding should happen. Julian laughed, sharp and bitter. You're unbelievable. Maybe, but I'm serious. Marianne stepped forward, her voice ice. Rowan, I think you need to step outside. I'm fine where I am. This is inappropriate. So is dismissing someone's work, their value, their entire life, because it doesn't fit your idea of success. Elara's eyes widened. Dad, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the way Julian talks about people like me, about the way he treats workers, the way he sees us as replaceable parts, about the way you let him. That's not fair. Isn't it? You asked me to stay silent at that dinner. You made me invisible because you were ashamed, and I agreed because I thought maybe you needed space to figure things out. But you didn't figure anything out. You just became more like him. Julian stepped closer. You don't know anything about me. I know you think certifications are just paperwork. I know you think welders are replaceable hands. I know you lost a major contract this week because you didn't realize how much you needed someone you dismissed. His face darkened. That was you. That was my choice. You tanked that deal on purpose. I declined a job. That's not the same thing. You're trying to sabotage me. I'm trying to protect my daughter from someone who doesn't respect the people who built his opportunities. Elara's voice cracked. Stop it, both of you. I turned to her. Elara, he doesn't see you as an equal. He sees you as an extension of himself. The moment you don't fit his vision, you'll be replaceable too. That's not true. It is, and you know it. Tears welled in her eyes. You're ruining everything. I'm trying to save you from a mistake. By destroying my wedding? By giving you a choice. Julian grabbed my arm. Get out. I pulled free. I'm not done. Yes, you are. Gareth Pell appeared, his expression grim. Rowan, maybe you should take a break. I'm fine. You're not, and neither is this situation. The coordinator stepped forward, clutching her folder. I need those signatures. If we don't finalize this today, the contracts expire. Marianne turned to her. We'll handle it. With all due respect, Mrs. Voss, I need Mr. Calix's signature. It's not optional. Then remove his name from the contracts. I can't, not without renegotiating everything. That takes time. How much time? Weeks. Maybe longer. Julian's jaw clenched. This is ridiculous. I looked at Elara. She was crying now, silent tears streaking her makeup. Her hands were shaking. Elara, I said quietly, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to wake you up. By humiliating me? By showing you what happens when someone has power they didn't earn. You don't have power. You're just being cruel. No, I'm being honest. Julian stepped between us. Enough. You've made your point. Now sign the papers and leave. I'm not signing. Then the wedding's off. That's your choice. He turned to the coordinator. Cancel everything. Elara gasped. Julian, no. What else do you want me to do? He's holding this hostage. He's my father. And he's sabotaging us. Because he thinks you're wrong for me. Julian froze. Do you? She didn't answer. Elara, do you think I'm wrong for you? I don't know anymore. The words hit him like a slap. His face went red. You're seriously going to let him do this? I don't know what to do. You choose, him or me. That's not fair. It's completely fair. He's forcing this. Make him stop. Elara looked at me, her eyes pleading. Dad, please, just sign. I shook my head. Not until you answer one question. What? Do you love him, or do you love what he represents? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Because if it's the second one, I continued, you're building a life on sand. And when it collapses, you'll blame yourself instead of him. Julian's voice was low. Sign the papers, or I'm done. Elara's tears came harder. Julian. Now, Elara, choose. She looked at him, then at me, her face crumpled. I can't. Julian stared at her. What? I can't choose. Not like this? Then it's over. He turned and walked out. Marianne followed, her heels clicking against the floor. Theo hesitated, glanced at me, then left too. The hall was silent. Elara sank into a chair, her head in her hands. The coordinator stood frozen, clutching her folder. Gareth Pell shook his head and walked away. I stayed where I was. After a long moment, Elara looked up. Are you happy now? No. Then why did you do this? Because you deserved better. I had better. I had everything. You had a performance, not a partnership. She wiped her eyes. You don't understand. I understand more than you think. She stood, her legs unsteady. I need to go. Elara, don't. She walked out, leaving me alone in the hall. The coordinator approached cautiously. Mr. Calix, what should I do? Cancel everything. Are you sure? Yes. She nodded and left. I stood there for a long time, looking at the empty chairs, the flowers, the stage where my daughter was supposed to start a new life. Then I walked out into the cold air and drove home. The apartment was dark when I got back. I didn't turn on the lights, just sat at the kitchen table and stared at nothing. My phone buzzed, a text from Elara. I hate you. I set the phone down. An hour later, another message. You ruined my life. I didn't respond. Around midnight, the phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Dad. Her voice was small, broken. I'm here. I don't know what to do. Take your time. Julian won't answer my calls. His mother blocked my number. I don't even know where he went. Give him space. I don't want space. I want this to be over. It is over. She started crying. I gave up everything for him. My job, my friends, my time. I changed who I was because I thought that's what it took, and now it's gone. You didn't lose anything real. How can you say that? Because if it was real, it wouldn't collapse the first time someone pushed back. You didn't push back. You destroyed it. I showed you the cracks. They were already there. She was quiet for a long time. I don't know if I can forgive you. You don't have to. Then why did you do it? Because you're my daughter, and I won't watch you disappear into someone else's vision of success. But I wanted that vision. Did you? Or did you want the approval that came with it? She didn't answer. Elara, you're brilliant. You're capable. You don't need someone like Julian to validate that. You never did. Then why did I feel like I did? Because it's easier to follow someone else's path than to build your own. And now I have nothing. You have yourself. That's more than most people. She hung up. I set the phone on the table and closed my eyes. The next morning, I went to work. No one mentioned the wedding. Either they didn't know or they didn't care. I welded in silence, focusing on the joints, the measurements, the precision. Around noon, Gareth Pell called. Rowan, we need to talk. About what? About what happened yesterday, about the contracts. There's nothing to talk about. Julian's firm is threatening to sue. They're claiming you acted in bad faith. On what grounds? Interference with business relations. Breach of implied agreement. I don't know. They're throwing everything at the wall. Let them. I didn't sign anything binding. Maybe not, but they're making noise. And noise costs money. That's not my problem. Rowan, I like you, but this is getting messy. If you want to settle this quietly, now's the time. I'm not settling. He sighed. Then get ready for a fight. I've been ready. I hung up. That evening, Irene Walsh called. Rowan, I heard what happened. News travels fast. It does. Are you all right? I'm fine. Julian's firm is making threats. Have you talked to a lawyer? I talked to Brennan. He said I'm clean. Good, because if they try anything, you'll need representation. I know. Do you need help with documentation? Not yet, but I'll let you know. Please do. And Rowan? Yeah? For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Thanks, Irene. I ended the call and made dinner. Rice, beans, something simple. I ate at the table, the photo of Elara still on the counter, watching me. Around 9, someone knocked on the door. I opened it. Elara stood in the hallway, her eyes red, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked exhausted. "Can I come in?" "Of course." She stepped inside and looked around. "I haven't been here in a while." "I know. It looks the same. I don't change much." She sat at the table. I poured her a glass of water and sat across from her. "I talked to Julian," she said. "And?" "He's not coming back. He said I embarrassed him, that I chose you over him." "Did you?" "I didn't choose anyone. I just couldn't decide." "That's still a choice." She wiped her eyes. "I feel like I lost everything." "You lost one thing, and it wasn't the right thing." "How do you know?" "Because the right thing doesn't make you feel smaller." She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. "Did I make you feel smaller?" "Yes." "I'm sorry." "I know." "I didn't mean to." "I know that too." She broke down then, sobbing into her hands. I reached across the table and held her hand. We sat like that for a long time. "What do I do now?" she asked finally. "You figure out what you want. Not what someone else wants for you, just you." "I don't even know where to start." "Start small, start honest," she nodded. "Can I stay here tonight?" "Always." She stood and walked to her old room. I heard the door close softly. I sat at the table a while longer, then went to bed. The next morning, Elara was gone. She'd left a note on the counter. "Thank you. I'll call you soon." I folded the note and put it in my pocket. The days that followed were quiet. I worked, came home, kept to myself. No calls from Elara, no threats from Julian's firm, no messages from Gareth Pell. It felt like the world had exhaled. 2 weeks later, Irene Walsh called. "Rowan, I have news." "Good or bad?" "Depends on perspective. Julian's firm dropped the lawsuit." "Why?" "They couldn't prove bad faith, and their lawyers advised them that pursuing it would cost more than it was worth." "Good. There's more. Gareth Pell reached out. He wants to talk." "About what?" "He didn't say, but he asked if you'd meet him." "When?" "Tomorrow. His office." "I'll be there." I arrived at Gareth's office the next afternoon. He was waiting in the conference room, a folder open on the table in front of him. "Rowan, thanks for coming." "What's this about?" "I wanted to apologize." I sat down. "For what?" "For not backing you. When Julian's firm pushed back, I should have stood with you. Instead, I tried to play both sides." "You were protecting your business." "That's what I told myself, but it was cowardice. It's over now." "Maybe. But I wanted you to know I respect what you did. You stood your ground when everyone else was bending." "I didn't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice. You just made the hard one." He slid the folder across the table. "I've got a new project. Smaller scale, local firm, no drama. Interested?" I opened the folder. The contract was straightforward. Good terms, reasonable timeline. "I'll think about it." "Fair enough." I left his office and drove home. That evening, Elara called. "Dad, I got a job." "Where?" "A nonprofit. They do community development, workforce training, that kind of thing. It's not glamorous, but it feels right." "That's good." "I start next week. I'm nervous." "You'll be fine." "I hope so." "Elara." "Yeah?" "I'm proud of you." She was quiet for a moment. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot." We talked for a while longer, then said goodbye. I sat at the table and looked at the photo on the counter. Elara at 18, smiling. Maybe that version wasn't gone after all. Friday came fast. The week had been steady, no drama, no calls from Julian's camp. I'd signed Gareth's contract and started planning the new project. It felt good to work on something clean. Around noon, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Rowan, it's Julian. We need to talk. Today. My office. 3 p.m. I stared at the message. Then I typed back. "No." His response came immediately. "This isn't optional. You cost me everything. The least you can do is hear me out." I didn't reply. At 2:30, he called. I let it go to voicemail. At 2:45, Marianne Voss called. I ignored that too. At 3 Dyke, someone knocked on my apartment door. I opened it. Julian stood in the hallway, his face haggard, his suit wrinkled. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "You didn't answer," he said. "I didn't want to." "Can I come in?" "No." "Rowan, please. 5 minutes." Say what you need to say from there. He exhaled, his shoulders sagging. You destroyed me. I declined a job. You knew what that would do. You knew my firm relied on those contracts. That's not my responsibility. It is when you're part of the chain. I was never part of your chain. I was someone you needed and dismissed. I didn't dismiss you? You called me replaceable. He flinched. That was just talk. No, that was how you see people, and I'm done being seen that way. So you wrecked my career to prove a point? I made a choice. You made yours. I lost everything. The contracts, the firm's reputation, my standing with the partners. They're talking about pushing me out. That's not because of me. That's because you didn't understand the work. I understood perfectly. You understood logistics. You didn't understand labor, and now you're paying for it. What about Elara? You took her from me too. I didn't take anyone. She made her own choice. After you poisoned her against me, I showed her who you were. If that poisoned anything, it was already rotten. His face darkened. You think you won? I don't think about it that way. Then how do you think about it? I think I protected my daughter from someone who would have erased her. I loved her. You loved the version of her that served you. He stared at me, his jaw tight. Then he laughed, bitter and broken. You're a self-righteous piece of work. Maybe, but I sleep fine. Enjoy it, because this isn't over. Yes, it is. He turned and walked away. I closed the door. That evening, Elara called again. Julian came by my apartment. What did he want? To apologize. To explain. I don't know. I didn't let him in. Good. He looked bad, Dad, like he's falling apart. That's not your responsibility. I know, but I feel guilty. Don't. He built his life on assumptions. When they collapsed, that was his failure, not yours. I guess? Elara, you're going to be fine. Better than fine. How do you know? Because you're already asking the right questions. That's the hard part. She laughed, soft and tired. Thanks, Dad. Anytime? We hung up. I made dinner and sat at the table. The apartment was quiet, but it didn't feel empty anymore. The photo on the counter caught my eye. Elara at 18, smiling. I smiled back. Outside, the city hummed. Somewhere, Julian was collapsing under the weight of his own arrogance. Somewhere, Marianne Voss was recalculating her son's future. Somewhere, Gareth Pell was rebuilding trust with vendors who'd learned what real leverage looked like. And here, in this small apartment with curling linoleum and a radiator that clanked, I sat with the knowledge that silence had been the loudest thing I'd ever said. I stood, washed my plate, and turned off the lights. Tomorrow, I'd go back to the shop. I'd weld steel, check measurements, sign certifications. I'd do the work that people like Julian thought was simple until they needed it, and I'd do it knowing that I'd protected the one thing that mattered. Not my career, not my reputation, my daughter, because in the end, that's what fathers do.